While they're coming up, I'm going to use the bully pulpit and ask a question first. Susan, I think you'd be best to answer this question, I believe. I have a particular interest in the impact of apocalyptic theology on the perception of Muslims among evangelical Christians. I wondered if you could comment, is there a similar dynamic within Islam?
That's an amazing question. Muslims, like Christians, are waiting for the return of Jesus the Messiah. And there are hadith that reference that Jesus the Messiah will descend upon Damascus. And not all Muslims, but when we see and there's another hadith also that speaks as one of the signs of the end of days in this eschatological or apocalyptic period, is that there will be fire in Yemen. And we see that Saudi Arabia, with the help of the United States, is waging a horrific war against the Yemeni people. And we see, for example, that the United States has made a treaty with Iran and its best friends with Saudi Arabia, and basically arming all sides to all conflicts in the Middle East at the same time, so that wars against tribes and nations have become Shia against Sunni. And it is horrendous. The Middle East is apocalyptic. I mean, even this week now there's demonstrations in Morocco. I mean, it's just, so as a believer, I'd like to feel that there's going to be justice and that that God is going to fix things. And I'm waiting for Jesus to come back and with the Mahdi fight the Antichrist. The Antichrist has not yet, according to Islamic tradition, materialized. But who knows? I mean, he could be in the form of Islamic State or Hafez al-Assad, or he's supposed to be a one-eyed monster. Some analysts say that that's maybe a symbol of the new world order, So there are a lot of theories, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I've noticed within the evangelical tradition, there's always this us versus them kind of mentality, which I think is influenced by the apocalyptic scriptures that a lot of evangelicals take at face value. It was the Soviet Union in the 70s, now it's Islam. Who knows what it'll be in the future. Yeah, I think you've answered the question well, yeah.
But to clarify, too, we are waiting for Jesus, the Messiah.
Right.
And so we are waiting for the believing people, the peace-loving people of all faiths to come together and reign during a period of peace. But unfortunately, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we're expecting a beautiful time, not of us and them, but of union.
Right. Who else?
Can I say something about that?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that the Islamic State has made a lot of hay using apocalyptic kind of themes. For example, their magazine that they put out is called Dabik, and they use a hadith where there's supposed to be kind of a final battle at that place, and so they think that they're like ushering in this kind of end time. So you can read about that in Will McCantz's book on ISIS, and also in the Graham Wood piece that was in the Atlantic early 2015.
Thank you.
Excuse me, though, if we talk about the Islamic State as a model for, or the authority for this question about apocalypse, that's like referring to the KKK to take the Christian perspective. This is not mainstream. This is aberrational, and this is not prophecy.
I didn't say it was mainstream. I didn't say anything normative about it. I just said that there are certain themes that they're picking up on, and they're trying to use it to influence people, and that's really the only point that I made. I didn't say anything about what most Muslims believe or whether or not they're right about those texts or anything. So.
Yes.
I jump in as well. So I think it's important when we're talking about sort of, let's say, moderate Muslims and extremist Muslims. Like, for me, like as a Muslim, I can disagree with what they're doing, but if they take the claim of Muslim, you know, that's not something that, I mean, I don't know if it's an effective response just to say, well, they're not Muslim and pretend that that's going to make it go away. So I guess I just want to be careful, like, and recognize that they do have a place in the sense that, you know, they state that they have the Muslim identity. And as I mentioned in my own speech, and I'm not in any way condoning what they do, but if someone claims to be Muslim, that's something that only that God can speak to or understand. So I guess I just want to be careful to say, because I've noticed a lot of Muslims will say, well, that's not Islam, they're not Muslim. And I agree with that in terms of the actions, but that response, I'm not sure, is going to take away the reality that they are there and the reality that they do take that identity claim, and the reality that a lot of people do assume that that's what Islam represents. So,
Thank you.
that's my thoughts.
Anybody else?
Yeah, thank you for your presentations. I think it might be a question really, but you can also respond to my comments as well if you want to. I got this opportunity to say this, something that I've thought about for quite some time. And Susan, I like the emphasis you laid on the role of the media in the United States and around the world. For someone like me, from Africa, where we watch CNN, Fox News, and the image you painted is troubling. But in the United States, you see this as part of freedom. And I like what Professor James said, that in the sense of freedom and legality, that's correct. But I think the Americans left something very important. In pursuing freedom, they abandoned normative values. They abandoned morality. And it's catching up with them and the rest of the world as it is. Donald Trump is talking about reducing the power of the media, but contradictorily, he's using the power of the media to project himself to become the next US president. And I think it's something that we need to really think about in a very serious way. Those who crafted the curriculum and crafted modernity and education that we are all benefiting from, I think we're wiser than we all are, all these generations afterwards. There is a sense in which we can relate maturity to consumption and decision making for our societies and for ourselves. And terrible as American public policy is, for me, I find it really terrible about gun policies and so on and so forth. Yesterday, I was in a room with my wife, and she was asking me to put off or move the channel to the next place because they were talking about somebody killing 2 policemen on duty, people who were supposed to be trying to provide safety. But so if we are back there and we are watching these things, we shouldn't be watching them even while we are here, because it's crazy for me that we could do that. So I think the power of the media and the way CNN and the rest of them project these images, I don't know whether they are serving normative, moral, sensible, credible, promoting the kind of values that all of us are sitting here in this room and thinking about diversity and unity and peace and love and compassion. I think it's something that we really need to think about. And my friend Rhodes, I think that the challenge you have faced is a challenge that all of us seated here are trying to overcome. Diversity comes with very huge challenges, and trying to blend them is something that we can all do and others will also do. But it is in that challenge that we find the creative energy to keep pushing for greater integration and greater support and so on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My first question goes to Madam Susan. If we look at the situation, our history, we find that between the Second World War backwards to 13 or 1500 century, the history professor will tell us, will confirm, in between the world lost up to about 300 million lives. 300 million lives, yet to some extent, the architectures of the loss of the lives are still alive, some of them, and others were not brought to book. And the issue was not overemphasized the way we are emphasizing issues that are more current at the moment. What is your take about that? Was there any architecture in those wars that are not emphasized today? Was the character different from the character of the players of this one? And why is Islam so calming, yet in the past, nobody is blamed for whatever took place? I think you get me.
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question specifically?
Now, the genesis of the problems, we have wars that have been fought where people died in millions, in bulk. 300 million people from Second World War backwards. Yet, after 1980s, we are having problems with the terrorists, with all those isms that are coming in under the name of Islamophobia and so on. So my question is, why is this one overemphasized, yet we are closing an eye to the past mistakes? Why? Why is the current crisis overtaking people's time? Yet there, in the past where people died in bigger millions, everybody is silent.
Well, I think in this technological age, this millennial age, what we've come to see is an evolution of world hegemonic power. So in the previous century and times before, for example, in a situation like Syria, you would see parties and factions or any country go to war, tribe against tribe, etc. But now we have a situation where we have proxy wars going on, such as the United States and Russia, basically arming all parties to the conflict, so that you see a city like Aleppo, which 5 years ago was population 7 million, is now 350,000. So what we're dealing in this area is a scale and scope that is unprecedented. And that's not to say that horrific tragedy hasn't happened in the past. But one thing also, too, in thinking or how we frame what's going on, Peter Ustinov said, terrorism is the war of the poor, and war is the terrorism of the rich. So now, and as we've listened to the brother speak about the media, for example, and media as an apparatus of the state, and we look at global hegemonic power with the United States and Russia really vying for control of the Middle East. I mean, it's just going back to Grayson. It is becoming apocalyptic in scope.
Thank you. So the wrap it up music is starting to play. So sorry we didn't get to all the questions. Thank you all very much, and thank you all for your answers.